Here we go. Sarah Schlafly.
Hello.
How are you?
Great.
I'm so happy you're here. Now, I first actually want to ask before we kind of give an intro to all the folks, being that we're here in St. Louis and Schlafly is a brewery. Do you get that question a lot? Like, are you related to that?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Are you related to that?
I
I'm asking.
am.
Okay. You are, really?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So is that where you think you kind of got your entrepreneurial spirit from?
Um, yeah, in my family, there are a lot of entrepreneurs. My grandmother was very entrepreneurial,
Mm-hmm.
and she was very well known, Phyllis Schlafly. Um, so that's probably where I got the most from, was from my
From your
grandmother.
grandmother?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was she a big part of your life growing up?
She was a big role model
Yeah.
in my life.
Just
Yeah.
kind of somebody you looked up to, the things that she had done, and you want to
hmm
kind of aspire to do something like that to that degree.
Yeah, I would read about her. Her name would be in my history books.
Oh, really?
So it was always like with her being my grandmother, I never really thought about it until I got into maybe high school or
Mm-hmm.
so, high school and college, and then um, people would kind of talk about her, and then I realized that she was really inspirational, and she had this can-do attitude. Like she didn't think that anything could not be achieved.
Right. Yeah, that's super important to have a belief and to kind of follow up that with action. So that must have been pretty cool to actually have that role model to look at and kind of aspire towards. Um, oh, I was gonna ask you a question about her. Oh, so she was an entrepreneur. What exactly did she do? I'm just curious.
She wrote several books. She was a
Okay.
political activist.
Okay. She was from here in
So
St. Louis?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool. So growing up, did you have much exposure to the brewery business or anything like that, or were you just kind of like doing your own thing and then like is that ran by your parents or who's that ran by? I don't know. What's your relation? Let me start there. What is your relation to that
The
business?
brewery is my dad's cousin.
Oh, your dad's cousin.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
that's just kind of a thing. So does that annoy you that people ask you about that?
No,
No,
no.
it's
I
just
think
kind of a thing.
it's good branding.
Hmm.
Schlafly, like immediately people are. It's an easy conversation opener.
Yeah.
So I use that to my advantage to be able to talk to people
Yeah.
who I'm interested in talking to because they're like, "Oh, Schlafly, are you related?" And it's like, boom, I'm in.
Boom. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's nice. That's an awesome icebreaker, and
Yeah.
I can only imagine the people that butcher your name. It took me a while to learn Schlafly.
The brewery has really helped with that.
Yeah.
So, like 10 or 15 years ago,
Yeah.
people would drop L's, like not get the pronunciation right. But now, people pretty much know Schlafly, at least in St. Louis.
Yeah.
They know how
Yeah.
to pronounce it.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. Well, we're not here for that, but I was super curious, so I had to ask you. So for the folks listening, you are an entrepreneur. You have a company, a couple companies
hmm
actually. So if you don't mind, just kind of give a brief kind of intro. Tell some people like who you are and kind of a little bit about your businesses a little bit, and then we'll just go from there. We'll keep diving
Sure.
in.
Yeah. I like to say that I'm a serial entrepreneur
Yeah.
because I've had multiple companies, and one of them is making cereal out of insect protein powder. So that one's called Mighty
All
Cricket.
right. Specifically crickets.
Yeah, yeah. And then my other company, MultiPass, we are a network of innovative workspaces. So we have shared collaborative workspaces like co working, co living around the world. And we are essentially an association for them and we provide them support so
Hmm.
that they can in turn impact and help the entrepreneurs in their spaces.
Yeah, that's really cool. We spoke on the phone briefly, and I definitely wanted to touch on that business because environment is so important. Whether it's like a work environment, especially in the work environment, because how many people? I mean, most people spend a good portion of their day at work. I feel like some people basically live at work. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so to have that environment is very important. What drove you to do that?
Um, well, it started as the Airbnb of co-working, and I'm really into travel. So I thought that that business concept would fit perfectly with my interests and my lifestyle.
Yeah.
But it's just evolved since my co-founder Christian Johnson and I learned the industry and saw where the need was.
Hmm.
It evolved into this support for the workspaces, and so I spent the past year and a half learning all about the industry, and so here we are today, and I'm very knowledgeable about workspaces and innovation and what breeds innovation.
Hmm.
And then, in addition, with Mighty Cricket, I've always worked in food. I've had other food startups, and I was also I built the digital marketing department for a national food brand.
Oh, cool.
Um, so that was just, that's one of my passions that's I've always had.
Yeah. So yeah, you like to build things.
I do,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What was your first business?
It was a mobile culinary school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. What was it called?
That one was a whisking apprentice.
Okay.
And I learned a little bit about a lot about branding through that.
Hmm.
One of them being how to pick a name that was a little bit easier to say.
Yeah. 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 That's
People
pretty
are like
important.
whiskey. I'm like, no, whisking, like
Yeah.
you're whisking
Yeah. Not the
something.
whiskey you drink.
They're like, that's a terrible name.
Yeah. Well, it's all a process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
So that was my first company I built in North Carolina. That was my MBA
Okay.
is what I like to say it as,
Yeah.
because you learn so much when you start a
Oh
business.
my goodness.
And I felt like I learned more in 2 years than I had in like 4 years of higher education.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when it comes to business because like that formal education format is, I mean, it has its purpose, but if you're trying to
Right.
be an entrepreneur, I mean, you might as well just go do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've toyed a lot with the idea of getting an MBA, and I was like, well, I could either spend 2 years paying to get educated, or I could spend 2 years possibly getting paid and get educated. So
Right.
maybe I'll just do the hands on approach.
I think that's a good approach for sure. And especially in today's climate, I mean, there's so many resources.
Yeah.
I'm an avid podcast listener. I mean, that's why I started this podcast. And in the health and wellness space, almost all of the relevant information is coming through podcasts or, I mean, books that are being released. But even then, a lot of those people who are like the scientists and actually doing the work, I mean, they're disseminating their information like in real time, like through, like to the people through the podcast that they do in the books that they write and whatnot. So, yeah, just that hands on approach is, I feel like that's really the way to go.
Yeah. When I was teaching my these cooking classes, my angle was integrating nutrition into cooking. And so I took a free online one of those MOOC courses on the science of gastronomy.
What's that?
So MOOC or
No, gastronomy.
gastronomy. So it was basically the chemical breakdown of food and how you taste food, how you
Oh,
visualize food, and so it really went into the detail, like the science of eating.
mm-hmm,
And that was just one example of a free online course
mm-hmm,
that I took. And I did a whole bunch of others like nutrition. I studied chemistry as I was learning, teaching myself. So that for my cooking school, I studied nutrition. I
mm-hmm,
read a whole bunch of articles from uh, um, the peer reviewed
mm-hmm. Like the
literature.
journals. Yeah.
Yeah, the journals. And so I gained all this knowledge without having to pay someone. On the other hand, I don't have any credentials behind my name. So,
Yeah, that's that flip side, isn't it?
yeah,
And sometimes I wonder how important those are. I guess it just depends on your industry, right?
it depends. Like, if I wanted to work in a large corporation and wanted to be like an exec there, I'd have to get an MBA.
Yeah. Just kind of the rules of the game,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I did go that route, and I got my master's in healthcare administration, and lo and behold, I don't work in a hospital. I
Mm.
just I have this piece of paper that looks cool, I guess,
Yeah.
but I think back, I'm like, man, I could have just the path that I'm on now, I could have just done that sooner. So it seems like you figured that out for yourself pretty quickly. Um,
Yeah, after 4 years of college, I got a degree in accounting.
hmm
I was pretty burnt out from school, so I took a break. And then, like, for me, I took a break and I started my own company. And it was just a tough pill to swallow going back
Yeah,
because all of a sudden, as I was teaching myself, I had an immediate application.
right,
Whereas in school, you learn things, but you don't immediately apply it, so you don't absorb it as well.
right.
And also, it's harder to get excited and interested in a subject when it's all theory
Yeah,
for 4 years. Everything's just theory. You're not practicing. So, yeah, I like so many times. There were about 3 times that I either enrolled in a program or I was looking seriously at a program and I pulled out last minute. I'm like,
yeah.
I can't do it.
Oh, yeah, it's just gonna just like crush your soul almost. It's like
Yeah.
everything is just gonna take away all your time. And then, and,
Yes.
and then now everything is going to be papers and tests,
Right.
and none of it's going to really directly impact your like your immediate income. So I can imagine that'd probably be a hard thing to go back to right now. So did you get your undergrad? You mentioned North Carolina. Is that where you went? Were you on the coast for school?
No, I got my undergrad at Truman
Oh,
State.
at Truman.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess just the travel bug caught you and you started traveling. Is that what happened?
I've lived in Georgia, North Carolina, Columbus, Ohio, and now
Oh
I'm
man,
back here in St. Louis.
man, just jumping around, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like it. Well, I mean, how do you know what you like unless you go explore?
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So, where did so with your current company, the Mighty Cricket Company,
Hmm.
that's geared towards health.
Yes.
Where did your journey into health begin for you?
I started getting into it in high school.
Okay.
I became really conscious about what kind of foods we're putting in our bodies, and you know, I would hear my mom struggle. She would always talk about her weight and how she's
Mm-hmm.
trying to lose weight from all the babies that she's had, and so she was constantly talking about it. So that probably is what got me interested in the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, in high school, my friends all knew me as like the health nut.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And carried through college. And I started, when I got to college, I was surprised. I remember being distinctly just surprised at how little people knew about nutrition
Oh,
and what
yeah.
is actually healthy. Because the college students would just look at the front of packaging on the shelves, and if it was had like a health looking brand,
Like if it had green colors or
yeah, green colors and said like,
all
you
natural.
know, healthy choice, not to pick on that brand, but if it had like a name like healthy choice, they're like, oh, it's healthy.
Right.
It's a healthy choice,
Of course.
The branding works. And no one knew how to read, few people knew how to read nutrition labels.
Mm-hmm.
So I just naturally started sharing with my fellow colleagues about how to read nutrition labels. And I was like, this is kind of fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I was also surprised at how little people knew how to cook.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man.
like, I would get calls from my friends being like, Sarah, how do you boil an egg? I'm like, really?
It's
I
like
didn't.
water and heat.
Yeah. 10 minutes later, you're done. So I saw this need in the market, and that's where that's when I started the cooking school. And then from there, I went into the corporate world for a couple years, helping build up that brand in digital marketing, having learned so much about how to market my own company. And then I just started learning about insect protein. And I was so intrigued by it for 2 reasons. One is it is super sustainable. And then the second reason is so healthy. And I have been looking at that time for a, a sustainable, healthy protein source that I could feel comfortable about eating because I'm getting fed up with the meat industry and the way cattle is treated and the way chickens are cooped up. And then to go and buy like grass fed or happy chickens and cows, it's still you're paying a lot for that. Um, and thinking long term, it's like with cows, emitting all of these carbon gases, these greenhouse gases, and the amount of feed it takes to feed chickens and cows and the land and all this stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
how are we going to feed ourselves in 20 or 40 years and still have a healthy planet and not be eating just soy all
Yeah.
the time?
Yeah, yeah. Especially because now, have you seen like they're growing meat in labs? Have you seen
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would trust that personally. I mean, I guess it would be maybe an option
Yeah.
to not have the cows and the different animals and whatnot out there, but
Right. I'm always my first response of any new technology is a little bit, discomfort. I'm open minded to it if it does prove in the scientific world and it becomes vetted and if it proves that it is healthy, then okay,
yeah,
I'll accept it. I have no knowledge right now
right.
about whether or not it's appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows if it's healthy or what the
Yeah.
long-term consequences of. I mean, they're still figuring all of that out.
Yeah.
But I just kind of look at that and I think, I mean, there has to be more sustainable ways, right?
Mhm.
Like crickets or just other forms of protein.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about edible insects because they are a protein powerhouse, especially crickets. Crickets, like, they just eat, and like everything they eat turns into protein, it seems like. But they're also really high in omega 3s. They're an excellent source of omega 3s and iron.
Okay.
And we're talking about hemoglobin iron, which is different than the iron you get from spinach, say, which is a plant iron. Our bodies have to convert that iron to be used in our bodies. But if it comes from an animal source, it's already in the form of iron that we can absorb.
Right, right. Yeah, you hear the argument a lot, especially, well, I just had a guest and they're real big hemp advocates. And I'd use hemp protein and I'd eat hemp seeds and different things. And it has, the omega 3 and 6 profile, which is really good, like the balance there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very bioavailable and all of that. But the truth of the matter is, animal protein is more bioavailable and it's
Yeah.
better used by the body,
Yeah.
period.
It is. It's you can't argue that. The body just absorbs our own,
Yeah, yeah.
kind.
Yeah, we're meant to, life consumes life. It's
Yeah.
just kind of the way the circle works.
Right. So that's what you get in insects versus plants, like the omega 3s. So crickets have an excellent omega 3 6 ratio. I believe it's 3 to 1, omega 6 to omega 3s. And it's in the form of, so like in plants, you get ALA omega 3s, and we have to convert it to DHA,
I
I
think so,
believe.
yeah.
Yep. And so in crickets, you're going to get that DHA,
Right.
omega 3s. So and the conversion rate in our body from ALA to DHA is really poor. I think it's like 1 to 9 or
Oh,
something like
really?
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
so
not so good at converting.
yeah, when it's all said and done, you're not really getting a whole lot of what you're intending to get.
Well, you're getting great nutrients,
Hmm.
but this is just, from an argument of why crickets, this is just one of the things I use.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I could dig it. What do they taste like?
When they're roasted, they taste like a toasted almond.
Ooh, that sounds good.
It is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of people just have trouble just getting over the idea,
It
right?
is the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially my products, we powder them and make it consumer friendly. So you don't even realize that you're eating cricket had I not told you. So mostly when people don't want to try it or they're squeamish to try it, it's just because I told them ahead of time.
Yeah.
But I also like to tell people you're already eating insects if you consume anything with wheat or, any nut butter because insects get ground in
Yeah,
that
they
and
get in there.
chocolate.
Hmm.
There's the USDA allows a certain percentage of insects in a whole bunch of processed items like that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
You're doing it
you're
anyway.
doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I'm not squeamish. Like I'm willing to try almost anything. I say almost because there's definitely a few things I wouldn't try. Like what do they do in the Philippines where they like the egg?
the balut.
Yeah.
So when
Have you had it?
I have had it. I went to
Oh.
the Philippines this summer, and I was like, you know what? I'm starting an edible insects company. I have to be adventurous in eating. So I tried beehive in Cambodia
Okay, I can do that.
with bee larvae in it. I also tried ants, and then ants are easy to eat.
Yeah.
And I tried the balut.
Oh
It was
man.
like a 17-day-old fertilized duck egg.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing I've eaten. It tasted good. It was good. It was just hard to eat.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, there's like a little bit of like bone in there, and
Mm-hmm.
you can see
Some
eyes, some
feathers.
feathers. Oh man, I'm pretty big on texture. Is it? So I imagine you get some crunch. Is it slimy-ish too, or?
um, I don't remember it
Oh,
being
okay.
slimy.
Okay.
They like kind of, well, was it hard boiled? I believe it was like harder.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll try it. They love it. They love it in the Philippines.
They do. It's yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so you've been all over Southeast Asia. What was
Hmm.
your favorite part?
The Philippines and Malaysia were my top two favorite parts.
Yeah, did you do anything super cool?
Yeah, I went to the world's oldest rainforest.
Oh,
I
wow.
went did some jungle trekking there. Um, I went to these beautiful tea hills in Malaysia,
Oh, yeah.
and the smell was just so fresh. And it's known for. I went to this tea farm that was world famous.
Oh, really?
And then in the Philippines, I'm not too much of a beach person, but the beaches there like blew me away.
Really? What was so like what stuck out to you the most about the beaches?
Um, oh, just how beautiful they were.
Yeah.
Like again, like I'll go to Florida and I'll be like, this is okay, I'll sit on the beach for an hour and go home. But like in the Philippines, it was I just wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that stuck out to me of the country was how relaxed the people were.
Mm.
And I just, by this point, I had been backpacking for about 5 weeks. I just had this deep, deep sense of relaxation by the time I left the Philippines that I didn't even know it was possible to
Really?
have. And I realized that my lifestyle in the US, I'm constantly like on a scale of or zero stress to 10 of high stress. I'm like, my baseline in the US is probably a five.
Oh yeah, just constantly just always something there.
And in the Philippines, like, it just went way down because my environment, everyone else had like not a care in the world. And they didn't have much at all. But what they had was this gorgeous scenery right out their front door.
Mhm.
And they would all go to the beach and just hang out
Sounds like a good community, right?
in the evenings. Yeah.
Yeah, community is so important. And I think traveling like you did and seeing the way other people are living, it's I think it's just such a necessary thing because in the States, like you said, everybody's so stressed
Yeah.
and nobody's healthy and everybody, not say nobody, but so many people are living very unhealthy lives.
Hmm.
And we're in a much like better place financially than like a lot of other places, but we're not happier.
Right.
You know what I mean? So something's not right there. And then you travel, you see these other places. It's like, well, man, they don't have a lot, but everybody seems really happy. Like there's something to that, right?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like Filipinos, just yeah, they didn't have very much at all, but they had amazing, like the world class islands and
Mm-hmm.
beaches out their front door, and they took advantage of it. That was another surprising thing was no one took their beaches for granted. They all greatly appreciated it and they used it.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was living in something that's beautiful, just I grew up there, I'd be like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, I thought that was just like a human thing. Like we just naturally kind of take those things for granted,
I know.
you know?
It was crazy.
Oh man.
My mind was blown. So, but touching on the community piece, that strikes a home with my other company, MultiPass, because these co-working spaces provide such great community for people, and even beyond just the startups, the entrepreneurs, people in the corporate world want to come to these collaborative workspaces because they're missing that community
Yeah.
and they're finding it in these niche communities in these spaces. And so I get really excited about helping support these micro communities around the world
Yeah.
and then connecting them together through our association
Absolutely.
and tying in the sustainability and wellness piece. So there are four core pillars of MultiPass, and that's community, diversity, sustainability, and wellness. And my business partner, he focuses a lot on the community and diversity, and I focus on the sustainability and wellness.
Okay, that's a good partnership.
Yeah, yeah. So we bring, he's just amazing at developing community, and then I'm all about the health and wellness and sustainability. So we try and between the two of us pack as many resources as we can and provide these to the spaces so that we can impact a lot more people and maybe bring like when I left the Philippines, I was like, man, I would love to bring some of the spirit of the Philippines back to the States and like instill that in these spaces and just kind of share a different way of living.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful mission for sure. Sounds like you're very purpose driven. Is that so? Your partner is that the same partner for your for the cricket company? I don't. I keep referring to it as the cricket
Oh,
company.
no, no worries. Mighty Cricket.
As Mighty Cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to call it like a classification though. Food. For the food. Nah, I don't know. Yeah, I just call it Mighty Cricket.
People, a lot of times, they refer to it as the Cricket Cereal Company because my URL is cricketcereal.com.
Yeah, but what's the classification for that? It's a
Oh,
food and beverage company. Food.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It could be,
I just call it Mike. I'll call it by its name.
or CPG
Hmm.
would be, consumer packaged goods.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, my business partner for that is Adam Kronk. He lives in Baltimore. He is was a cell biologist. He is a cell biologist, but he was working in a lab here in St. Louis when I met him.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So did you so what how do I want to ask this? Because you had those four core principles.
hmm
Um did those translate over to this company as well? Or
So
kind
this
of
company is really focused on the sustainability and wellness piece
those
of
two
it.
pieces.
Because as I said, I brought those two pillars into MultiPass.
Right.
That's kind of my specialty.
Okay.
So it definitely overlaps with MultiPass
Okay.
in
All
that
right.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get my mind around it all. It's really cool. So you currently you guys have two products, right? You have the cereal, the oatmeal cereal, and then you have the powder protein. I'll let you talk
Yes.
about it. You tell me. You
Yeah.
tell me what you have.
Okay. We have a line of oatmeals. So we have three flavors: dark cocoa, cinnamon apple, and coconut cream. And then we sell the protein powder so that if people want to make their own recipes or then they have the powder to do so. And we are launching soon. I don't know when, but soon, hopefully before the end of the year, a waffle and pancake mix.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
That'd be real good. So would that just be I guess it would be if it's a mix, it'd be like an instant waffle or pancake.
It'll be like a high end Bizquick.
Yeah. That'd be cool. That'd be real cool. So you're thinking maybe next year sometime for that, or when are you thinking? Is that
Well,
just kind of in the R&D right now?
the goal is to launch it by the end of the year. We're working on sourcing packaging right now for it. So, I have 2 months to the year end. So we'll see if I can make it
You
happen.
got time. You got time. Have you thought about doing just like a whole cricket, like a chocolate covered cricket or anything like that?
Um, I haven't thought about that in the near future,
Hmm.
but I think that especially in the Midwest, so we are the first edible insects CPG company here. Um, very few people have had any
Yeah.
sort of insect, whereas on the coast, like they're a little bit more introduced to it.
Yeah.
Um, so to have like a whole insect like that would be a little bit harder for Midwesterners to stomach right now.
Hmm.
So we want to introduce products that are ground. You wouldn't even notice they're
Yeah.
an insect, and then slowly warm them up to the idea of eating something maybe a little bit whole.
Yeah. That's a good approach. Things are definitely slower to get to the Midwest. Much, much slower. I always have this thing to where I feel like if I know something, then like everybody knows it. And that can be almost to a fault, especially in the Midwest, because I'm sure you, as you've maybe have come across like with your travels, like you get exposed to a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
And then you come back here and people have no idea.
Yeah.
Like what are you talking about?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to convey my experiences because unless you experience it for yourself, then it's really hard to wrap your mind around some things.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing with health and wellness. I always say like you don't know how good you can feel until you feel it. You know,
Yeah.
80 to 90% of our serotonin and a lot of other neurochemicals are produced in our gut. So, I mean, that's why they call it the second brain. So, if you're eating poor food, like it has a direct effect on like your cognitive ability too, and like how we interact and interpret this world. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you just don't know until you know.
Right. That's a really excellent point. And speaking of gut health, so crickets act as a prebiotic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's this study that came out recently about showing that crickets seem to promote healthy gut bacteria.
Oh, that's
It
cool.
was really cool.
Yeah, that's real, real cool. So, I don't think I asked you this, but why crickets? I mean, you've given me some benefits of the crickets, right?
Hmm.
But I would imagine, did you kind of explore other possible insects before landing on crickets, or did you just kind
Hmm.
of come across crickets and you're like, this is it?
Well, initially I came across crickets, and for me personally, I was like, "Oh, this is what I've been looking for." But then as I started learning about other insects, I was like, "Oh, there's really great advantages to these other things." But when I thought through them, like I'm personally interested in mealworms, because they're much cheaper to raise than crickets, and they've got almost as good of a nutritional profile. The challenge is that when I say to people, would you like to eat cricket cereal? And I say, would you like to eat mealworm cereal?
Hmm.
No one wants to, very few people want to have worm in their food.
Yeah, that's a big throw off.
But crickets are like, we're starting to get to an age where people are willing to try it.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And I found that my target market, well, I found that when I asked people, usually under the age of 40, 45, they're willing to try it. Older than that, it's like, no,
No way.
I don't want to try it. But there is as a market I'm finding in older women,
Hmm.
like 50s, 60s, who are at this point in their life where they're really conscious about their health and that of their spouses,
Hmm.
and they are searching for like all of these superfoods, antioxidants, these, wellness things that they can try to like boost their longevity.
Right. Yeah, longevity is it's just a growing field. How can people live longer? I fully intend to be a centenarian.
Okay.
Yeah, like I just decided, so it's gonna happen. I'm just
So
gonna.
you're on the Okinawan diet?
No, I'm not that good of a diet. They're on it over there.
Yeah.
I try to eat as clean as possible though. But no, you're doing a lot of good things with the oatmeal, right? Though I mean, because there are a lot of health benefits with oatmeal, and then you're just combining with the protein aspect of it. Because I'm gonna change gears here actually, because I had another question.
Hmm.
Crickets are keto, right? It's all
Uh,
protein, right?
yeah.
What is like? They don't have a lot. I mean, they're not like carbohydrate or
No, not
it's just
really at
all
all.
protein.
They're high in fiber, um, high protein, almost all protein,
Yeah.
um, and just a little bit of fat.
Yeah, yeah. They just seem to have it seems like a just a really good source of just nutrients.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah.
and I'm not keto or anything like that, but it was just an easy way to like
They're also high in
ask that
vitamin,
question.
right? They're also high in vitamin B12,
Oh, that's important.
which is awesome. Especially some vegans are interested in crickets, which I was surprised about. It's because of like the reason why they're vegan. If they're vegan for sustainability reasons, then they're like, oh, okay, well, crickets are a great way to get my vitamin B12, which you can't get from plants.
Right.
So that's the, big deficiency of the vegan diet. But this is a way to
Yeah.
get that. But, not a lot of vegans don't want to eat the crickets.
Yeah.
However, the way they're raised and harvested is very humane. Is part of their natural life cycle, the way they're harvested. So in nature, crickets will pop up when it turns warm, and then like here in the U.S., in Missouri, once it starts getting colder, then they go into hibernation, and eventually they die. So crickets don't last longer than like 12 weeks.
Oh, wow, that's a quick life cycle.
Yeah. So then when they're being raised and harvested for consumption, they're raised in these big crates, and there are things where that you can put in crates and they hop around and stuff, and then they're harvested by hopping into another bin, and then they're bagged and frozen. So then they fall asleep like they naturally do, and then eventually after 24 hours, they'll die. But if you thaw them like before they fully after a full deep freeze, they will come back to
Oh,
life.
really?
They are the hardiest animal. It's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that is a huge piece for the sustainability as far as, I mean, you can grow a lot in a very little space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So it takes about a pound of beef protein takes around 2,000 gallons of water to make. And a pound of chicken protein takes about 700 gallons of water. A pound of soy protein requires 5 gallons, and a pound of cricket protein requires 1 gallon of water.
Oh, nice.
So, from the water standpoint, it just like blows away
Yeah.
any other protein
That's huge,
source.
and especially like soy. I'm not a big fan of soy. As a male, one, soy promotes estrogen growth,
Right.
so that's not really something that I want. And then something like 90 some odd percent, like most of soy is GMO. Like hardly any of it's really like organic.
Yeah, unless it's fermented. I heard that's an endocrine disruptor, and there's soy in everything, so we're already consuming so much soy.
Yeah,
But yeah, in terms of water, like we're heading into the world has a water crisis. And so crickets are a great way to add something nutrient dense into foods without using so much water,
yeah,
which is, there are peanut butter projects for malnourished Haitians and Africans that are being headed up by various parties in the US, and they're finding that it is requiring too much water to get the peanuts. So if we can enhance some of this food with the cricket protein or another insect protein, then we'll be able to feed more people.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. I mean, nutrient dense food is just so important because countless people are just eating nutrient void food. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? There's nothing in there. And you mentioned the B12. That I think that's so important, especially like for the vegans, because like you could try to get it through like spirulina or chlorella or something, but that algae tastes like crap. Like nobody wants that. Um, yeah, that's clutch. Are you involved with any of those like organizations or anything like that, like doing like the world feeding?
I would like to get involved with two things. One is disaster relief programs. So when in a crisis, here's some nutrient dense foods that you can disseminate. And then the second is for malnourished populations of the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's I'm just thinking all this through. Like, it's a really good option for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
And for me, it would help my startup because we would be able to gain volume
Hmm.
really quickly through that to help lower the cost of production.
Yeah,
Because any food startup has such high costs because we're buying quantities,
yeah,
and we have to pass that cost on to the consumer. So that's something that I would like to align with organizations that are doing this and have a passion for sustainable nutrient dense foods so that we can help each other. I can use my company to really help the world, and in turn I'd be able to lower my own costs so that people who just everyday Americans can take advantage of Mighty Cricket products without having to pay a fortune for it.
right. I imagine if you were to introduce like cricket farming to a community, I mean, you're creating like a source of like income for that community and like or and food and like you said, it doesn't take many resources. I imagine it's pretty easy to teach somebody how to raise crickets. No? Am I oversimplifying it? What does it take to grow
Um,
crickets?
it takes heat. It takes a warehouse, some feed. There's an investment. There's a little startup cost, but it's certainly doable.
Yeah,
I mean, not yeah. It's totally if you just have a little bit of space,
right.
just a little bit of space and a little bit of interest in it,
Yeah, it doesn't
you
take
can do.
much at all.
Yeah.
You could do a lot. That's really cool. So if folks wanted to like check out your cereal, where would they go for that?
Cricketcereal.com.
And then they can just check out the cricketcereal.com. There's again three flavors
Of the
of
oatmeal
the oatmeal.
right now, yeah. Then the cricket protein powder, and then hopefully before the end of the year, if I get my act together, there will be a waffle and pancake mix, and that one had people are in St. Louis when I've tested it out so far. They've been so excited about that one, and my
Yeah,
daughter loves the cricket waffles.
I bet she does. What kid doesn't like
I
waffles?
know,
They're so
and
good.
and she knows that she's eating crickets, but like y- that's because I told her. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know.
Yeah. Kids kind of like that weird stuff though.
They do. Yeah, she was really excited about the. She asked me to put crickets in her smoothies that I make for her.
Oh, really?
She's all about the crickets.
I
She's my
love it.
biggest fan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Does your protein powder, does it come in flavors or?
No, not yet. Not right now.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about that. Whey is mixes with water pretty well,
Hmm.
but the cricket powder would not blend. It's not. It doesn't. It's not like water soluble. You
Okay.
know. So I'm doing some testing to see if I can like make a good protein powder that's flavored that people would just add water to.
Yeah.
So that's in
Yeah.
the works.
It's all a process. You know what I mean? Like that's the beautiful thing about business, right? I mean, it's all trial and error, really. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's how you're learning.
Yeah, iteration after iteration, listening to the consumer's feedback is huge. And I've worked in customer feedback before, and so I really appreciate when I get feedback, even if it, I mean, positive or negative, I don't care
Yeah.
because that's really valuable content. I listen to it, and then people are telling me, like, I don't like this, or I really like this, or I want to see more of this. I really do incorporate that into my products.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. So many entrepreneurs like they get in this like one track mind, and I've been guilty of this. It's like, well, this is what I want to do. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So, what do you mean you don't like it? Like, I like it.
Right. And, or like any sort of criticism, you get offended and you're like, well, that concern isn't valid because this person is just mean or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really not helpful
No.
if you don't like, and sometimes you do get criticism that's put in a hostile format. But what I've come to realize is people are hostile when they're criticizing companies sometimes, because they're like feeling guilty
Yeah.
about like they don't like the product and they feel either guilty that they don't like it and they have to tell the person, or they feel like they were deceived or manipulated on purpose. So there's a lot of distrust with corporations, and
Yeah.
like corporations, especially US based, or I guess anywhere in the world, they're just trying to make the most profit and
Yeah.
like cheapen their products for the consumer. But having worked in a variety of small to medium sized businesses and like having my own business, and having the financial background of accounting, I just realized that companies are a lot of times just trying to make a really great product.
Yeah.
They're not trying to deceive the customer or anything. So I take it from that approach, like trying to assure the customer that I really appreciate their feedback and I will use it versus, not just like gonna get mad that they gave me a critical review.
Yeah. A lot of consumers are just so jaded
Mm-hmm.
by a very like old world model of business.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't work anymore.
But I do have to say in the branding of health and wellness, there are a lot of companies that want to be branded as healthy, so they do so, and they're not really healthy.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I do understand the like kind of intentional deception.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens all the time.
It
I mean,
does, yeah.
you'll have like you said, Nature's Choice, or like you'll have or you said Healthy Choice.
I said healthy choice, not to rap on that brand, but just saying that you can use name like
You're
healthy
right.
choice.
Yeah, or they'll, just beautiful packaging with greens and just lighter colors, or they'll have that little heart healthy symbol on there, which you buy, by the way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
like who are
Yeah.
you fooling? So yeah, and then you just kind of compound that with the fact that, like you said, most people don't read labels,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a lot of misinformation in the health and wellness space.
So when I was in North Carolina, I had this project called SOS Surviving on Stamps, where I taught families on food stamps that you don't have to be wealthy to eat healthy, was my tagline.
That's a good one. It's so true.
Yeah, and so I would go into people's homes, and I was filming this, kind of critique their kitchen, pantry, and refrigerator and the foods in it. And then I teach them how to make something healthy given their budget. And so remember one of these families that I was helping. I pulled out this frozen TV dinner and asked the guy why he bought this, and he said he bought it to try and be healthy. And I was like, okay, that's kind of an odd answer. So I look on the nutrition label, and it was super high in sodium and high in sugar. And I said, okay, look at this label. Now, this is like for a serving size of two. And he was like, what? I'm like, so if you're going to eat this whole thing by yourself, you have to multiply it by two.
Right. Yeah, people miss that.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm like, why did you buy this? And he's like, well, in the front, there's broccoli there. There's like, he was just going by the image
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
these fresh looking vegetables. And I was just like, oh man, this is not healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing about it is healthy isn't really the most convenient thing. Like it doesn't
Right.
have to be super inconvenient. Um, I mean, what's a healthier and quicker snack than like grabbing a piece of fruit or something?
Hmm.
Um, but it does take a little bit of work.
Also, with like for fruit, for example, like if you're buying bananas, you're having to monitor to make sure they don't spoil, which
Yeah.
is additional bandwidth. It takes
Hmm.
a little bit of thought to make sure your fresh produce doesn't go bad.
Yeah, because it goes bad quick.
Yeah, and that's something I learned from my Surviving on Stamps project was that these low income families had so much other stress and worries to think about that they really couldn't think about, unfortunately, their health. They couldn't like put that first because they were so busy putting out other fires.
Yeah.
So they couldn't think about like how do I go shopping and buy fresh stuff and make sure that it doesn't spoil and I have enough food for everyone, and
Yeah.
it's just too much.
Yeah, health usually is the first thing that goes on the back burner
Mhm.
when you start worried about all these other things. Which actually brings me to a question. Maybe a little bit, we're gonna segue a little bit here because
Okay.
you maybe it was a good thought that I just had. What do you think about a possible um, like universal like basic income for people? I'm asking because like I think about like where technology is going, and especially with like what we're with like Tesla and these different things and like self-driving cars, and you kind of think about, I mean, we're losing more and more jobs to technology all the time. So eventually, I feel like there's gonna there's gonna be more people than jobs, which we're kind of getting to that place pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so I just think about like just human basic needs, you know what I mean? And like you had made the comment, they're worried about these other things, like I imagine like paying rent and,
Yeah.
like earning, just living. So have you ever thought about that? Like a universal income or like what that might do? Or if
Oh man.
I don't know, I pulled it out of left field.
This is out of left field. It's not my
It's to
expertise at all.
That's totally fine. That's totally
Yeah.
fine. I always think about it because sometimes I'm just like, man, maybe that wouldn't be a terrible thing because there's like two arguments there. Like one, if you have money just coming to you, then you're not going to do anything. But if you have just like enough to like, I don't know, maybe just like pay rent and electric, then maybe that would free up to do some other pursuits in life, like
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, like finding that purpose to where you can help your community.
Well, we do there. So I worked with people in public housing. So we kind of already have, some of those systems in place, and it's not they have to qualify to get the housing or get the food stamps, or
Yeah,
they have to meet certain criteria. But if you give someone just like a blank check of, a base income and they could spend however they wanted, um I don't know, would they spend it on housing or would they spend it on something that they shouldn't?
yeah. Well, if you remove I think it would have to replace the welfare systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you couldn't have this option and this option.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like these would have to go away, and then it's like, all right, everybody gets like $1,000 every month. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a number.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I heard that proposed on Joe Rogan some time ago, and it's something I've mulled over the year. Like I don't know. It's probably been a year plus now for sure. But it's
It
just
it would be giving people, putting the power back in the people of how they want to spend their money. So like public housing, I guess you have an allotment, you can only spend it in certain areas, and
hmm
this would give them a little bit more flexibility to do that.
yeah.
Um, it's a thought.
I don't know. It's just an interesting thought because, like I said, just with the way things seem to be going with technology, We just need less people to do the jobs. And then I mentioned like the Tesla and self-driving cars. I mean, if we got 18 wheelers that can drive themselves, I mean, that's a huge portion of the population that that won't have a job.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So like
cab
what do
drivers.
you do with those people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think one of the coolest things that people could start getting back into, like, are having small farms.
yeah.
Like bring it back to the basics
It
of
seems like we're just returning there.
urban farming could be a thing. Um, and, would they be able to grow enough to sustain themselves and sell some things?
I don't know. You see it more and more in the cities. I've seen it in St. Louis some. You know, they'll take like a little plot and they'll turn it into like a little community farm, but it's not much. It's like a garden.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had like this vision where, like when you're saying that, like what if they did that more urban farming? Like you just took some plots. I mean, you had a garden for vegetables, and then right next to it, you're growing crickets because they
Yeah.
don't take much space,
Right,
right? And they
right.
only take a gallon of water. Like I don't know. It just seems like some cool possibilities.
Yeah. I was thinking about how awesome it would be if there as much marketing was going into fresh fruits and vegetables as it was going into packaged goods.
That'd be so cool.
Because farmers are not marketers.
At all.
And like in order to get enough return from okay. So what if like farmers start growing these artesian, like these heirloom tomatoes or this specific type of broccoli that you never found before here in the U.S. or these gourmet bananas.
Yeah.
Um, and then they actually had some marketing dollars behind that. So all of a sudden, the packaging of this produce was differentiated. Right now, green beans are kind of a commodity.
Yeah.
They aren't differentiated by these are a specific variety or these are, from so and so
Yeah.
farms.
There's no story behind
There's
it
no
at all.
story.
It's like it's
Yeah.
just here. It is. It's just sitting here.
Yeah, and in grocery stores, they're displayed in these big bins.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, if there is any branding, the only branding will be like a sign that says locally made or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Um, but if marketers marketed for the farmers rather than for the CPG companies, how cool would that
Yeah.
be?
That'd be a really good shift to have.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, like when one time several years ago when I was in college, grapes were branded with Disney characters.
Really.
And they said, I forget what brand it was, but sales went through the roof during that period.
That's cool. Yeah. I didn't see that.
And I remember my college roommates buying the grapes because of the Disney characters for some reason. So yeah, that was what first planned that thought in my mind. Uh, but yeah, that could be a game changer then.
Yeah. I never thought about that. I mean, yeah. What if you had like I don't know, Moana coconuts or something. Like, I don't know, pick a Disney character and just
Right.
you put them on a fruit or a vegetable or something. I bet more kids would be apt to eat that.
And then all of a sudden, like farmers could charge more for more niche to grow more niche things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then, like you said, it's no longer a commodity. You know, you have this farmer, it's like, no, I specialize in this particular type of vegetable.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that thought for sure. There's a lot of places we could take this
I
for
know.
sure. I mean, the health and wellness space has a lot of room for growth for
Mhm.
sure. You know, and getting their message across. Um, it's war out there.
Yeah, we've talked about a whole bunch of different things here with so many different concepts, but
Yeah,
like bringing those that urban farming to like our everyday world, that's something that I'd like to see with MultiPass is like bringing gardens into the spaces,
Oh,
or
yeah.
now there are these companies that are starting to automate farming indoors. Um, like with technology, they can just automate getting nutrients to the right plants and stuff from, a tablet
Yeah,
or
yeah.
phone.
Makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of different cool things with farming, trying to figure out how they can grow more in less space.
Yeah, so like bringing that into the MultiPass network of spaces, that would be so awesome to see.
Yeah, the possibilities are are amazing. Yeah, good stuff. Well, Sarah, it's been an hour.
Wow.
I know, time just flies.
It does.
Yeah, I know. I really appreciate you taking the time. Tell the folks how they can, again, find you. Say hello, ask questions,
Yeah.
anything you want to plug. The floor is yours.
Okay. So there I have my Mighty Cricket URL. MultiPass URL is multipassapp.com. But the best way really to reach out to me is I'm always on LinkedIn,
Okay.
and I love it. And so if they send me a connection request and a message on LinkedIn, I'm Sarah Schlafly. Um, Sarah with an H, Schlafly like the beer. So that's how they can reach out to me.
Okay. Okay. Any other socials? That's the best one for you?
That's the best one for me.
Okay. All right. And I'll put this in the show notes to make it easy for people to click and find you. So
Okay, cool.
cool. All right, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Adam.
Thanks, everybody. Until next time.